The best boxer of all time.
Honestly, the most skilled was a guy named Salvador Sánchez.
I don't know who Salvador Sánchez was.
Exactly. That's because you're not as much of a boxing fan as I am.
Who's the best fighter? Salvador Sánchez.
I think Sanchez was hard to beat. He fought much better than most, and if you went out there to kill, he was going to mess you up.
Seeing boxing legends talk with such mystique about a boxer who was far from fighting in the most relevant categories of his era made me wonder how he did it. And that's why, at Alakutim, we've taken on the task of researching and creating this video, which is without a doubt one of the most special ones. Not only because he's a legend of boxing, but also because he's the idol of many of today's most admired boxers. Please welcome Chava Salvador Sánchez. Salvador Sánchez Narvaez was born on January 26, 1959 in Santiago Tianguistenco, a city in the state of Mexico, obviously in Mexico. Our protagonist today was the son of a couple of farmers who worked the land with effort, so money was not exactly abundant. It's not that they lived in extreme poverty, but they did live in somewhat difficult economic conditions. So from a very young age, Salvador had to work to help his family. Although today it's almost impossible not to associate his name with boxing, his first passion was Mexican wrestling, a discipline that strongly caught his attention. However, a friend took him to a boxing gym when he was between 13 and 14 years old, even though no one in his family had ever boxed. He quickly showed a talent for throwing punches. He fought as an amateur for almost 2 years, and his amateur record depends on the sources you consult. Some say 9 fights, all won, others say 35, which would be about 2 fights per month. So it's a number that, well, isn't unreasonable, especially if you want to increase your experience. But the thing is, thanks to his skill, he started being pushed to debut as a professional. Obviously with the main motivation of making money to help his loved ones and to improve his quality of life.
Because that's what a man does.
The thing is, our protagonist was 16 years old and his parents weren't thrilled to see him getting beaten up for money in a ring. But seeing the determination their son had shown, they decided to support him. And yes, I know a lot of you are going to ask me, how did he manage to debut at 16 years old? But the answer is very simple. It was Mexico in different times, and that's it.
Let the corruption continue.
He made his professional debut on May 5th, 1975 against someone named Al Gardeno, whom, according to the record, he defeated by knockout in the 3rd round, making it an effective debut. And within 10 months, he would add 8 more victories, bringing his record to 9-0, with only 1 decision so far. On April 24th, 1976, he would face Jose Chavez, to whom he gave a boxing lesson. The thing is, the beating was so bad that the referee stopped the fight in the 7th round. After this victory, he added 4 more wins in 6 months, all by way of technical knockout or knockout. On December 25th, 1976, he faced Antonio Leon, who stood up to our protagonist. And even though Leon lived up to his last name, enduring and landing his punches on Sánchez, he would end up falling in the 10th round by technical knockout, as he didn't get up after being sent to the canvas. After this tough fight, he adds 3 more names to his list of victims, bringing his record to 18-0 and managing to secure a fight for the Mexican bantamweight title. And what seemed like it could be an easy fight turns into a war for which, unfortunately, there is no video. But what is known is that our protagonist would lose the fight by split decision, adding a defeat to his record, breaking his undefeated streak. But be careful, because this is the only defeat he had. Affected by the defeat, he goes back to the gym and fine-tunes the details in his game so he can come back. And when he does, he goes through 2 wars in less than a month. First against Jose Luis Soto, and then against Eliseo Cosme. Defeating both by points with an enviable record of 21-1, he makes his debut on American soil. His opponent would be a certain Juan Escobar, who does enough to secure a draw. And after this not-so-beneficial debut on Yankee soil, he spends almost 2 years fighting between Mexico and the United States, adding 13 wins to his record and defeating names like Jose Santana, Carlos Menelas, Salvador Torres, Felix Trinidad Sr., the father of Trinidad, who fought against Oscar de la Hoya and Richard Rosell. And he took out all the mentioned opponents by knockouts or technical knockouts. With a beastly record of 33 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw, and having just turned 21, he becomes the challenger for the World Boxing Council Featherweight World Title, World Boxing Council. This title was held by a certain Danny Little Red Lopez, who had made a name for himself by being champion for 4 years. Besides having fists loaded with dynamite, and as expected, both of them went to war. Fortunately, Sanchez doesn't fall into Lopez's game of turning the fight into a violent exchange, and uses a more strategic approach, landing classy shots on the champion. Lopez was dominated to such an extent that in the 13th round, the referee stopped the fight because he was taking punches like popcorn. In this way, Salvador Sánchez becomes the World Boxing Council Featherweight Champion, World Boxing Council. And he would quickly prove that he was a champion by right. Because in less than 2 damn months, he makes his first title defense against Ruben Castillo, a rival who would put up a very tough resistance. After 15 rounds, Salvador takes a unanimous decision. And I'm sure many of you are like, oh, what the fuck? What the hell? How come 15 rounds? Things used to be like that, folks. Nowadays it's impossible, but back then it was the norm. Two months after that war, he would face Danny Lopez again, who was hoping to get the belt back. But the only thing he recovered was himself, going back home after the beating Salvador gave him.
In the 14th round, Sanchez rattles his skull with such violent blows that the referee stops the fight. And he closes 1980 with 2 more defenses. 2 extremely violent defenses, I meant to say. The first against Patrick Ford and the second against Juan Laporte.
In the first one, he manages to win by majority decision, and in the second by unanimous decision.
Not bad, not bad.
1981, he starts by defending his title for the 5th time against my compatriot Roberto Castanon, who managed to withstand the punishment at least for a few rounds. In the 10th round, as usual, Sanchez unleashed a flurry of punches that hit Castanon so hard they stopped the fight. And with a monstrous record of 41-1, he has a non-title fight against Nicky Perez, whom he defeats by unanimous decision. Just a month later, he has what is considered one of the best fights of his career. A fight against Wilfredo Gomez, but this fight had bad blood even before the bell rang. You see, Gomez had been talking trash about Salvador for months, getting personal and insulting him every chance he got. Sanchez, for his part, stayed calm. He responded to the verbal attacks by saying he would do his talking in the ring like a Giga Chad. But nowadays, it's known that he was actually really pissed off and all he wanted was to rip Gomez's head off. On August 21st, 1981, at the Caesars Palace in Las Vegas, both fighters get into the ring and Sanchez massacres his opponent during 8 painful and violent rounds. After this masterclass in boxing and violence, he spends 3 months out, but when he returns, he dispatches 2 opponents in almost 5 months. First, Pat Codwell. And then Jorge Garcia. The first one by split decision and the second one by unanimous decision. By the way, that year in '81, he ended up being considered the best boxer of the year by the Ring magazine, right alongside Sugar Ray Leonard. His next mandatory opponent was supposed to be Mario Miranda, but he couldn't face our protagonist and was replaced by the Ghanaian Azuman Nelson. Nelson was expected to be pummeled by Sanchez, since he was unknown to many, but as a good Ghanaian, he gave it his all and managed to withstand the punishment dealt by our protagonist. Although he lost in the 15th round, Salvador does what he always does. He unleashes a tremendous barrage of punches and knocks down his opponent, who manages to get back up, but Salvador repeats the dose and they stop the fight. With a formidable record of 44-1-1 and just 23 years old, the future seemed promising. But Salvador's future was no longer in the boxing rings, but rather in the realm of boxing legends. August 12, 1982. In the morning hours, Salvador was spending time with a group of fans and then went to his training camp since a rematch against Laporte was coming up. But on his way to San Luis Potosí, he tried to overtake a car and ended up crashing his Porsche 928 into a couple of cars coming from the opposite direction, dying instantly. The news of his death shocked not only the Mexican public, but also the boxing community in general, since Sanchez was already practically a boxing star. The outcomes of fights that many saw as possible in his future, such as facing Alexis Arguello or a young Julio Cesar Chavez, remained in the realm of speculation. He managed to make 9 defenses of his title in just 2 years. Those numbers are crazy because nowadays no boxing commission would let a boxer go through those kinds of marathons. His boxing skills practically made him the idol of our idols, since they recognized the tremendous impact that Salvador had on boxing. But is his legend really that glorious? The easy answer is yes. No one will ever take away his 9 defenses in 2 years. No one can deny that he managed to defeat 3 future boxing Hall of Famers. But it's also true that his record is quite inflated. 13. If we look at his statistics, we realize that it was only in his 13th fight that he started facing real, experienced opposition. Well, before that, he even fought a debutante when he already had 7 professional fights. Or take the case of Ponce, who had only 2 wins and 4 losses, when he had to face Sanchez, who already had 24 wins, more than 15 by knockout or technical knockout. And I'm not trying to tarnish his name, not at all. Salvador Sánchez is a sports legend, but I think he was both a beneficiary and a victim of the times in which he fought. Besides, his own legacy is sadly amplified by his untimely passing. His impressive record of 44-1-1 puts him in this position for pure boxing victories. By the way, Salvador even acted in a movie that was released after his death, and I dare say that if he had lived longer, he might have expanded his filmography, probably to the level of a Carlos Monzon. Of course, before throwing his success out the window, along with his wife, Salvador Sánchez, like other greats of boxing, came from humble beginnings and thanks to his effort became a champion. And by a twist of fate, he moved on to the realm of legends, where he has been for more than 40 years, inspiring with his feats. Like the boxer whom only death could knock out. He truly deserves his video on this channel, and thank you so much everyone for being here.